Day 36 on the Florida Trail. Beautiful sunny day, cool. Oh, perfect conditions. Let's see where we go today. Get to hike by the Suwannee River again today. So beautiful. There's a sinkhole, big one. Oh, this is so pretty on an early morning. You can see the mist on the river. This is a bizarre, yet very significant story in the Bible. I'm almost embarrassed to tell it, but I guess I better. Jacob's fourth son, Judah, left his brothers and went to visit an Adulamite named Hira. The commentators and Bible historians figure that he was about 13 years old at this time. He saw a Canaanite daughter and he married her, and they rapidly had 3 sons. When his eldest son was 13 years old, he went and found him a wife named Tamar. Such a pretty walk by the river. Just loving this. Judah's firstborn son was very wicked in the sight of the Lord, so God killed him. It doesn't say in the Bible what his wickedness was all about, but this is the first text that explicitly states that God put an individual to death. So he must have been bad. No wonder there was a song written about this river. It's beautiful. Judah told his next son, Onan, to be Tamar's husband. But Onan knew that the heir would not be his, but his deceased brother's. So he had sex with Tamar, but he spilled his seed on the ground. Well, this displeased God as well, so he killed Onan. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law, "Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah is grown." Then he said, "Lest he also die like his brothers." So she went to live with her father. But Judah had no intention of letting his final son be killed as well. Then Judah's wife Shua died. Judah was comforted. And then he went to a place called Timnah to shear his sheep. Tamar heard about it, and she knew that Judah's youngest son was grown, but he had not given him to her. So she did some devising. She took off her widow's clothes and covered herself with a veil, and then sat in an open place that was on the way to Timnah. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot, because she had covered her face. Then he turned to her and said, "Please let me come in to you." But he didn't know it was his daughter-in-law. She said, "What will you give me that you may come in to me?" I told you this story was going to be embarrassing to tell. Anyway, Judah said he would give her a goat from his flock, but she wanted security until she got that goat. Judah said, "What pledge do you want?" She said, "I want the signet and cord and staff in your hand." A signet is another name for a seal and is of considerable value since no businesses can be transacted without it. But Tamar was pretty smart because Judah was doing business with her. The staff was probably all carved and very special too. So Judah gave her these things and then had sex with her. She then put away her veil and put back on her widow's clothes after Judah had left. But it turns out that she had conceived with Judah. Judah sent the young goat by the hand of his friend the Adulamite, and to get back his belongings. But his friend couldn't find her. He asked the men of that place where the harlot was that openly sits by the roadside, but the men responded, "There is no harlot around here." Then Judah threw up his hands and said, "Whatever." He didn't want to pursue it because it would bring him shame. Well, it was 3 months later that Judah was told that Tamar was pregnant by being a harlot. So Judah said, "Bring her here and let her be burned." When she was brought to her father-in-law, she said, "Hey, I have these things that the man I'm pregnant with owns this signet ring and staff." Then Judah acknowledged that those were his. And he said, "Tamar has been more righteous than I because I did not give her my last son." And he never had sex with her again. You see, it was customary back then that when a woman became a widow, the next son would become her husband. It was to protect the woman, I guess, to give her security in life. I wouldn't like it, but it was custom. So Judah did wrong by her. So Tamar took things into her own hands, although again, it was by deceit. She had twins, and when delivering, one son stuck his hand out, and the midwife tied a scarlet cord around his wrist. But then the baby withdrew back into the womb, and the other son was born first instead. The firstborn was named Perez, and the second one born with the scarlet thread, his name was Zerah. Here's the significance of this story. As crazy and sinful as Judah was, he did confess. And God used him because through his son Perez that he had with Tamar came the lineage of King David and the Messiah. There's quite a deep ravine down there. And then something up ahead is making a lot of ruckus. I wonder what birds those are. I can hear them, but I can barely see them. Okay, all you birders, tell me what they are. All kinds of squawking going on. I've got about a mile of a road walk like this now. At least it's not totally saturated. This is deja vu. It's been quite a while since I've had to get my feet wet. But I was okay there. And now I'm by the Suwannee again. Lovely. He's pretty far away, but that's a big turtle. Now I have about a mile of a bike ride. I don't care, every little bit helps. I'd much rather bike it than walk it. All right, back into the woods I go. That was kind of crazy. Very busy road. This terrain is very different from what I did this morning. It could be a woods anywhere in North America. They're doing logging or something in these woods, clearing out the brush, so it's pretty noisy. It's not as remote as I'd like it to be. But can you imagine Jesus' lineage coming from such sinful human beings? But what choice did he have? All humans are sinful and sin-sick and damaged. That Christ chose to become a human to save humans from sin is even more astounding because of this story. He did not come from a pure, perfectly righteous heritage. And because of that, we have hope. We can have hope because he is so willing to forgive and to use us for the betterment of his kingdom. I'm nearing the end point now, 10 miles today. I'll see you tomorrow, but what is preventing you from giving your heart to Jesus?